Welcome back for episode 2. Introductions are always the hardest part for me. I never know where to start and how to introduce it, how to start without being super awkward. So, I had this idea. I'm going to start each video with an icebreaker question. Because I think they're fun and because I saw one on TikTok this week that I just thought was so funny and spent way too much time thinking about it. The icebreaker question is, if you had to pick a pasta noodle to ride into battle on, which type of pasta noodle would you pick? And I saw this question asked to, I think it was the cast of not Stranger Things, Supernatural. Um, and it was hilarious. It was so funny. And I died, and so I wanted to answer it because I spent way too much time thinking about it. Um, so the pasta noodle that I would ride into battle on is the bow tie noodle because it has the middle part that's skinnier and you can ride it like a horse, but then you can carry stuff on the front and the back, and then it has the pokey edges. You can make them really sharp and then run into people in battle. Um, so that's a pasta noodle that I would ride into battle. Put in the comments your answer to the question, and also tell me another icebreaker question I should use for a future video. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks those are fun, but I think they're really fun. Um, and I think about them way too deeply and way too much. Anyway, as you can see, hopefully, I have better lighting this time. So that's the goal. Is each video is just gonna get a little bit better, and so the focus for this video was lighting and to get better lighting. So that's what I did. So the topic for this week is, well, I'll put it in the title, but Charlie Kirk, idol or role model, and what's the difference between an idol and a role model? So I was scrolling TikTok. I scroll TikTok way too much, but I was scrolling TikTok and I came across this video of this girl, and I believe she was a Christian, and she was responding to the basically the Charlie Kirk movement is what I want to call it, of after the tragic incident, so many people are getting on this movement of trying to be more like him, and the whole movement of the I am Charlie Kirk, and she was basically bashing that, and saying that as Christians we should not be trying to be like another person because that is idolizing them. We should only try to be like Jesus, not other people. And I saw that video, and initially I was pretty upset by it because I was I don't know, because Charlie Kirk had such an impact on my life. I mean, he's one of the main reasons I actually started this now. I've thought about it for a really long time and kept putting it off. And his tragedy impacted me way more than I would have expected it to. And it was really I had followed him for a long time and I'd watched his things, and I'd growing up, not growing up, but growing into my young adult years when I started voting and stuff. I watched a lot of his stuff to hear about what was going on in the world and form my political opinions, and I feel like he shared current events and politics through such a lens of hope because he had Jesus. And I really, really appreciated that about him, because watching the news it was always so stressful for me and just so anxiety inducing that I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. It made me feel icky. But I think it's important to know what's going on in the world. So I really appreciated his take where he could talk about current events and talk about politics and what's going on in the world, and he could talk about it in a way that presented the sad and the ugly and the bad, but also kept the focus on, but we have a good God. And our hope is in that and not in all these things that are happening in the world. And so I really appreciated his take on that and the way he talked to people that he disagreed with and the way that he saw them as beautiful creations of God and made in the image of God, and not just saw their opinions and didn't let that blind him. And he was so bold about it, and I think that inspired me to actually step up and start this, because I do want to be more like him. And so when I saw this this TikTok, I don't know who it was, I don't remember, I scrolled past it pretty quick, but when I saw her basically admonishing, is that the right word? I don't know. But like going off on Christians of like, we can't be a part of this, like this is idolatry, like she threw that word out there of like, this is idolatry, like we should be trying to be like man, we should be trying to be like Jesus. And at first I was like really upset when I saw that, because it felt like a personal attack. But then I like slowed down and I checked my heart, because I want to be open to criticism, and I want to make sure that my heart is in the right place. So I thought about it, and I was like, is this idolization? And the verse, 1 Corinthians 11:1 came to my head, and that is Paul writing, and he writes, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And so I was like, well, Paul told us to imitate him, and he was a man, he was a human. So I went and I looked at that, because I didn't want to take the verse out of context. So I went and I looked at the context of that, and that sentence it's the first sentence of chapter 11, the first verse. But immediately after, it starts like a new section with a new title. And so I went back before that and realized that this first verse of chapter 11 is the last sentence in the section of chapter 10, because 1 Corinthians is just one whole letter that Paul wrote. And so, it all goes together, but it's a part of the section in chapter 10, which, ironically, is all about idolatry. It's all about learning lessons from the idolatry of the Israelites. So I was like, okay, that's funny. That's ironic. But in the end of that section, the first verse of chapter 11, Paul tells the Corinthians to imitate him as he imitates Christ. So then I got to think about it. I was like, okay, yes, we don't want to idolize people, because the only one who should be worshiping is Jesus. And that's true. And we do, I think our culture does have a problem of idolizing people, whether it's celebrities or, well, mostly celebrities, or government officials or whatever. I think we do have that problem of idolization. But I don't think that's the case here. I think there's a difference between an idol and a role model. And it's important to know the difference, because a role model can easily slip into that idol headspace. But I really want to make sure that we understand the difference, because I think it's really important. I think it's good to have role models. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's actually really important to have people that we look up to. The same as if it was a mentor, but in my head, a mentor is someone that you know personally, whereas a role model could be someone you know personally, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? So what's the difference then between a role model and an idol? An idol is easy to define. It's something that you worship, something that, or someone, someone that you put up on this pedestal. And I think as a Western culture, we tend to idolize celebrities like Taylor Swift or Sabrina Carpenter, or those are the two that come to the top of my brain right away. I'm just pretty basic over here, but Taylor Swift's new album came out, so that's just on my mind, which not my favorite, but not terrible. But I do think it's really important to know the difference between a role model and an idol. First of all, with those two, Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, they're not necessarily people that I want to, as a Christian, that I want to model my life after. They're just not. And so I definitely don't want them as role models. I admire things like the way they run the business of what they do, and that part of it. But I don't necessarily want to take life lessons from them. Just looking at the content of their music that they put out is not, it's not something I want to do as a Christian. Now, do I think it's wrong to listen to their music? Not necessarily. I think that's a personal conviction thing where, in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Paul writes, but you say everything is, or I'm allowed to do anything, and then he writes, but not everything is good for you. So I think it's one of those things that just pray about it and use your discernment and convictions and follow that. That's not what this video is about. I could make one about that, because there's definitely a lot to unpack there, but that's a whole other topic. But I think we get to a point where we obsess over the celebrity so much, that it just becomes unhealthy. Of we spend more time listening to their music than we do listening to music about Jesus, or we spend more time watching their interviews and listening to what they believe than we do in the Word, and focus and learning about what Jesus taught. And so I think that can be a really big, I think when something becomes more important to you than spending time with Jesus, that's when it becomes an idol. And so, I think it's just being aware of how you're spending your time and having self-control there. But then I think a role model is okay, and I think it's healthy, and I think it's important. And of course you have to choose role models wisely, and I think choosing someone like a Sabrina Carpenter or Taylor Swift as a role model maybe isn't a wise decision. But choosing someone like Charlie Kirk as a role model, I think that's a great decision. I think that's very wise, very smart. He loved Jesus. I think there are so many lessons that we can learn from him still. I've watched a lot of his stuff, but he would talk about how he took a Sabbath and he turned off all of his screens Friday night at sunset and didn't turn them off, or didn't turn them back on until Saturday night, for a full 24 hours, just unplugged and spent time with his family. That's an incredible thing that we all need to learn. And it's biblical, and all of his beliefs were based first and foremost in his faith in Jesus Christ. And I think that is a wonderful thing to follow. I think there's a lot about him that we can learn from as Christians. And the way he loved people, I think, is the biggest. I think that's the biggest lesson. It's like top 3 for me of the biggest lessons that I have learned and am learning from him still, is how to love people. And you know what's crazy is people say that he was hateful and that he hated people, but that's not true. He just told the truth. And telling the truth is loving. We have this new definition of what love looks like now. And it's all acceptance and do what you want. Like, I accept you as how you are and whatever. That's not love. That's acceptance. And that's not love. Like, if a doctor is not gonna go to a cancer patient and not tell them that they have cancer because they don't want to make them upset. Like, that would not be a kind and loving thing for the doctor to do. The doctor's not going to be like, oh yeah, cancer's just who you are. It's okay. Like, it's great. Just lean into it. And what? No. The doctor's going to say, hey, you have a problem. I want to help you fix it. Like, that is loving. That is love. That's what we're called to do as Christians, is to tell the truth. And I think so many times we'll bring up the story of the woman caught in adultery, and it's the whole don't throw the first stone. It's like, yeah, okay, we've all messed up. I get it, but we forget about the second part when Jesus says, yeah, you without sin cast the first stone, and so no one does. But then he helps the woman up, and he says, now go and sin no more. He's like, go and be better. Like, he didn't just accept that she was living in sin. Like, he protected her, and he loved her, and he forgave her. And then he said, okay, now go and do better. Go and be better. Go be who I called you to be, who I created you to be, because I didn't create you to be stuck in the mud here. And so I think that's one thing that Charlie Kirk did really well, is he loved people by telling them the truth. He loved people in the way that Jesus did. He loved people in a way that is so foreign now, but shouldn't be. And so I think that is one of the biggest lessons that we can learn from him still, is how to love better. And I think that's one way that we can imitate him and try to be more like him, and in doing so, we're going to become more like Jesus. Because he was following Jesus in that. Another lesson, another one was he spoke with such hope. He dealt with some of the worst. Like, he was reporting current events and news, which is incredibly stressful, and he was deeply invested in politics, which, don't even get me started. Politics is so messy and so dramatic and so icky sometimes. But he did it all with such hope and peace, and because he was rooted in Jesus. And I think that's another lesson we can take from him, and one that I'm trying to learn of, like, so I would watch his show and watch his videos to learn about current events and learn about politics and learn about it all through that lens of hope, because that's how he would present it. And now we, unfortunately and very sadly, don't have that anymore. And so now I'm having to learn how to put it all through that lens of hope myself, and learn how to see the world through the lens of hope of Jesus for myself, rather than waiting for someone else to do it for me. And it's hard. It's hard to look at the violence happening around the country and around the world, and hard to look at the lies and deception from people and the government and all the things and still see the hope and what Jesus wants to do through it. But it's what Charlie did, and so that's what I want to do. And he definitely, so I think no, we're not making him an idol, because, and if you look at how many people are going back to church right now, and look at his memorial, there were 100,000 people ish, around 100,000 people, and more if you count the online, spend hours just worshiping Jesus together. Like, if that's, they're not worshiping Charlie Kirk, they were all worshiping Jesus. The leaders of our country were worshiping Jesus for hours, I think, and declaring Jesus, the truth of Jesus, and that's incredible. That's a miracle. I think, no, we're not idolizing Charlie Kirk. And I'm sure maybe there's the one or two cases of people that are, like, there always is, like, the exceptions. But in the majority, we're not idolizing Charlie Kirk. We've made him a role model that we want to follow. And he should be. He should be a role model that we try to follow. I could go on forever about him as a leader, as just as a person. I didn't know him personally, but I've seen so much about him and heard so many different people who did know him personally talk about him. He's the kind of person that we should all try to be. And sure, I'm not saying he was perfect, but he was someone that we should try to, he was someone that should be a role model. I think, yeah, make him a role model in your life. And I think even though he's gone from this world, he can still be a role model. And we have the blessing of technology, to where, and there was so much of his life was recorded. We can still have that. We can, like, it's such a blessing from God that we're able to still have those pieces of him to teach us and to he can continue to be a role model even though he's in heaven with Jesus now. And you know what? Honestly, like, not only him, but his wife, Erica, if I could be even a fraction of the woman that she is, I would be satisfied. I would consider that successful. Like, her faith and her strength. I've seen a lot of conspiracy. Clearly, there are conspiracy theories about this whole case, this whole situation, and I get it. I can get down with a conspiracy theory or two. But watching Erica Kirk get up in front of millions of people and share the gospel, and you can just, there's the conspiracy theories because she's able to smile and laugh, and there's a couple things. First of all, we need to remember that while, yes, there are clips and videos and it's all over the internet and you see it over and over again, we've really only seen, maybe two, maybe 3 hours of her life since this happened. And it was, as of right now, it was what, 3 weeks ago? Like, I think we see so much of it online that we think we've seen, like, it. I don't want to say it's easy, but to pull yourself together for an hour and then fall apart for the other 23 hours of the day, not unthinkable. And so I think we forget, like we see the video over and over again, and so in our brains it feels like she's just going about life as normal. But like literally there's like maybe 2 hours of footage of her since it all happened, and I don't think that's crazy. I mean it takes a lot of strength to do that, to pull yourself together even for 2 hours. But I think there's so much strength in her, and I think it's because she has Jesus, and I think the smiling, the laughing, like that's the joy that Jesus brings. That's the peace that Jesus brings, that he offers, and it's not happiness, because I can probably guarantee you that she is not happy with her situation right now. She's not happy about it. But she has a joy and hope and peace in Jesus, and her strength comes from him, and her identity is in him. And identity is a whole other topic that I want to talk about. But her identity is in him, and it wasn't in being Charlie Kirk's wife. Her identity is in Jesus Christ. And she knows that Charlie's in heaven with Jesus. And so much peace and hope comes from that I enjoy. Like, you can be joyful and still mourning. You can be joyful and still sad. And so in looking for and talking about role models, if you're looking for a new role model, choose Erica Kirk, because wow, again, if I could be even a fraction of the woman that she is, I would consider that a success, like hands down. But yeah, I think as Christians, we need to be very careful about our language, calling out idolization and all of that, and we need to make sure we're clear on our terms, because we throw out these buzzwords like idol and people get scared. And no, you can have a role model. Be wise, be discerning, but you can have a role model. You should have a role model. Like, it's a good thing. And Charlie Kirk was one of the best ones out there. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that. And yeah, I think be wise about who you choose to model your life after. Yes, model your life after Jesus, but you can have role models. You should have role models. You should have mentors. Like, but be wise about picking who they are, and don't put them above Jesus. Like, spend time reading your Bible, spend time worshiping and in prayer, and spend more time with Jesus than anyone else. But have your role models. Have your role models. That's okay. I think it's good. It's good to have someone that you model your life after, or even just learn from. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing bad about that. So yeah, thank you for listening. That was what I wanted to say about role models and idols. I think we do have a problem with idolizing celebrities. But I don't know, maybe that'll be a future video, because I could go off and I don't really feel like doing that right now. Yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to see where this goes. Obviously this is only episode 2, so we'll see, but I'm excited. I have lots of fun ideas and plans. I've got a whole list of topics that I want to talk about. If you want to listen, I appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like. It helps. Yeah. Thank you so much.